Cross-country fans, were you not entertained? We hope you were. The 2024 World Athletics Cross-Country Championships from Belgrade, Serbia are in the books. Jonathan Gault was there. He is here now, thanks to the wonders of the internet. Thanks to Al Gore, who invented this wonderful device 25 years ago. Just kidding, folks. This is Robert Johnson, Let's Run On co-founder, welcoming you to a special live edition of Track Talk. Normally, this is our weekly podcast, but we do it live sometimes after big events, and we're doing it live now. The Kenyan Women Dream Team have lived up to the hype. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Emily Chebet has defended her title.
Beatrice Chebet, Robert. Beatrice Chebet.
Excuse me. And on the men's side, Joshua. Excuse me, John. I'm having a brain fart here. Jacob Caplimo has repeated as the men's champion. In many ways, today's action was similar to last year. Same champions. But Joshua Cheptegei has failed to medal. What does that mean? Is he on the decline? I've got some interesting stats there. Barahu Aragawe, the Grand Fisher killer, finishes second for the second year in a row. What does that mean for Fisher? The top Americans, we were hoping to get a woman in the top 10. Weini Kelati went for it. Very brave run. Faded to 16th place. Anthony Rocic was in the top 20 for 2 laps. Ended up 22nd. Did you know that the top non-American was an NAU runner, Aaron Los Harris? On the junior side, the U.S. teams were unable to repeat their medal-winning performances from last year. It looked like Team USA might get a medal in the mixed relay. But then, to be honest, Katie Izzo ran terrible on the last leg. Should she have been on the team? We'll get into that. All of that and more on the show. Thanks for joining us. John, what do you think?
Yeah, Robert, happy to be here from Serbia. I feel like I look a little flushed, maybe a little red, because it was 80 degrees plus and sunny the whole day. I did put on sunblock, but, I'm a pale Englishman, so I'm going to get a little color. Also, the pollen, pretty terrible. My nose has been running the whole day. But enough about me. The races themselves, I enjoyed watching them. I enjoyed watching Weini Kelati go for it. Thought the men's race, there's some odd surges from I was like, are these guys for real? What are they doing? And then the quality asserted itself on the final lap. Kenya's women absolutely dominated. Other aspects of this meet I wasn't crazy about. The fans, there were not a ton of fans. I feel like the organizers didn't spread the word all that well. I mean, they had a quick turnaround, but if I had to estimate, I'd say there was less than 1,000 spectators on the course, and they were sort of confined to certain areas, couldn't create that much atmosphere. So in terms of like a World XC, this wasn't one of the stronger editions, atmosphere-wise.
Stop. I don't care about the atmosphere. I care about the competition. I thought it was a wonderful visual from television, and I want to thank you, Belgrade, for stepping up, hosting World Indoors 2 years ago, and stepping up to host this meet on little notice. Yeah, fine. The attendance wasn't good. I don't understand why we don't just put this in our house every single year. They did such a wonderful job there. That would be cool. Or, most years have it there, hype it up. We can do that. But in terms of the level of competition, it was amazing. I thought the visuals were great. We're finalizing the written recap here, but I think that the hay bales should be a permanent part of the World Cross Country course. I think it should be actually added to the NCAA Cross Country. I think NCAA Cross Country should add a mud pit. I love the visuals. I think that throws people off their rhythm. So those things are good for the sport. Yeah, obviously, it wasn't a huge crowd, but it's not like Serbia is known for having a fantastic cross country team. So, I kind of somewhat understand that. You think maybe in the Olympic year people would show up, but let's go race by race, starting with this. In terms of the senior races, and the senior women were first, and pretty much this race went, I guess, according to form. We expected the Kenyan women to dominate, and they did. The big question was who would win the individual title. And on the regular podcast, I think we were saying, okay, Agnes Ngedic has run 28:46 on the road. She's the 10K world record holder. How does she lose? And then I don't know. When you interviewed the defending champion, Beatrice Chebet, who ran 14:05 on the track last year, has medaled on the track before. When she told you, basically implied that she didn't go out of the Kenyan trials, I thought, how are they going to drop her? And I changed my pick yesterday. And I said, I think she's going to win. And she did. I mean, in this race, she's a beautiful runner. Some people just look smooth all the time, even when they're tired. But she just looked like these other women were like sweating, looked like they were tired. And, half mile to go, if you took a picture of the lead pack and said who's going to win, you would have picked her, and she did win.
Well, I mean, I thought with 2K to go, as soon as they entered that final loop and she was still with the lead pack, I was thinking, okay, Agnes and Gedich led most of it. I assumed she was trying to drop them and just couldn't. And by that point, I was like, all right, Chebet's probably the woman to be here. And she did just that. So credit to her. She's a winner. She has won World Cross 2 times in a row. She won the junior race in 2019. So she's actually undefeated, 3-0 lifetime at World Cross. She won the World Road Running Championships last year as well in the 5K. The one thing she hasn't done is win a global gold on the track. Silver in 2022 in the 5K, bronze last year. She will have to face women she didn't face today. I'm thinking possibly Sfan Hassan, Lathessan Bagide, Gudov Sagai, Faith Kipyegon. It's not going to be easy, but she's only 24. She's on the upswing. She could get she ran a PR in her last track race, 14:05 back in September. Maybe she has reached a new level, but this was a very impressive run by her. And she does, it's interesting. I asked her, do you consider yourself a good hot weather runner? You won in this race. You won. It was very hot in Bathurst last year. And she's like, no, not hot, but in the warm weather, I do well. And I'm like, maybe that's the difference. She considers 80 degrees and really sunny, no cloud cover. That's only warm. That's not hot for her. Because she was like, it was nice. It was sunny. It was like Kenya. So she did not seem to be fazed by the conditions at all and played this one perfectly. She knew, if it comes down to a kick, she's probably got the best kick. So she was happy for it to go that way, even though Gedich did try to drop her, it looked like.
I'd like to thank all the live listeners. If you'd like this as a podcast, join the Let'sRun.com supporters club, the Let'sRun.com/subscribe. Some of them are hating on us, John. They're saying my hair is off, and they're loving your hair. It's always perfectly manicured, John. So, I'm not sure why they're hating. You can always count on Roger to say the dumbest things imaginable. Okay, when I say something really stupid, please put it out in the comments. I don't think I've said anything stupid so far. I mean, I got a few names wrong, but that was just me. Whatever, the way my brain works. All right. In terms of like moving forward, in terms of the significance of this women's race, like big storylines, obviously Chebet trying to win the gold on the track is something that we'll be following. But I think that the bigger storyline here is Agnes and Gedich. Like, what do we make of this 28:46 and this 28:57 in Valencia? And Tim Hutchings and Paula Radcliffe on the broadcast. By the way, I didn't think it was Tim's best broadcast. Kept saying Chebet had won a world title on the track. Repeatedly said it, and Paula kept correcting him. He didn't realize that she should have just said, "Hey, Tim, she's never won that." She kind of made it subtle, and he didn't pick up on it. But they were talking on the broadcast about how it used to be your track times are faster than the road times, and now they think it's reversed. I kind of think that's true, but it's interesting. Let's imagine for a moment that Gedich had won this race and had done it in convincing fashion. I think moving forward, we would have been thinking, oh my God, this is the new queen of distance running on planet Earth. Like, we've never seen a woman this good, 28:45, etc. Now the fact that she doesn't even medal, I think that we have a totally different take on it. And I don't want to say she's the biggest loser. I mean, she was what, 5th place, but doesn't even score for Kenya, which is crazy. That's how good their team was. But I think my takeaway is, okay, if you put the top track runners on the world in a road race in these super shoes, I guess they would run 28:45, or maybe Valencia was a little bit short or something like that, because I don't think, Gade, Hassan, etc. I mean, I guess given the fact we've had a woman run 2:11 in the marathon, 28:45, 46 shouldn't seem that crazy. But I'm not expecting Ingedic to contend for gold. Maybe she can get in the medal hunt. But what do we make of that world record 10K run now?
Yeah, I think what I make of it, again, this is just one data point. This is her first race, and Gedic's first race since that. Well, she ran the Kenyan Trials, which she won. But again, I don't think Chebet was going quite all out there. But yeah, I'm more inclined to say I think the roads are probably faster than the track. I was talking to Paula Radcliffe. She was broadcasting right next to the press tribune. And she said, look, in my career, I ran 30:01 on the track and I ran 30:21 for a 10K on the roads. And she thought that was about accurate. She thought the roads were about 20 seconds slower than the track. And now she says it might be flipped. The roads might be 20 seconds faster because you can wear shoes on the roads you're not allowed to wear on the track. And so, yeah, I think even when Ingedic ran that time, we both thought, Robert, that someone like Hassan or Gade, one of these super talents, probably could run well under 29 minutes on the roads. The question was, could someone who is getting, could Beatrice Chebet do it? Or could someone who's very, very good, but not one of these all-time talents yet? And I think what we're seeing, my guess after this race is the roads just are faster now. If you get the right shoes, the right pacing, the right environment, because you can get male paces in the 10K as well on the roads, which you cannot get on the track. So combine those things. And Gedich is a really good runner. I think she's going to continue improving. I'm not trying to discredit her or anything, but I also think, I think the roads are faster. I think that's the takeaway here.
Yeah. That's a good point about the male pacing for the women on the roads. But, when we were having the 10, I was like, why don't more athletes go to the roads? One thing that you don't get on the roads is the wave light pacing for the men. So, you might have a rabbit for longer, but you can't get the pace perfect at the start. You kind of have to, old fashioned estimate it. Although I guess you could wear a GPS watch. So, that was the big storyline up front. In terms of, Weini Kelati, she comes into this race having set a half marathon American record, having hit the 10K qualifier at the 10. And, when you talked to her yesterday or the day before, she was like, nothing intimidates me. I'm ready to run with these women. And my God, she tried. I mean, she went with these women, was in the lead pack for
the first two laps. So about 4K, she got dropped around halfway. But Robert, it's funny because I was watching this unfold and my opinions were just wrong, time after time, because I see her hanging on and I'm like, oh, this is going to end poorly for her. She's going to get dropped at some point. Oh, sorry. Once she got dropped, I was like, she's still got 5K to go. This is going to end poorly for her. She might end up really blowing up. And then with 1 lap to go, she was still 7th place and wasn't looking like she was blowing up. And I'm like, I'm totally wrong. She's going to get top 10. This is a great run. She might get 7th. And then the last lap is where things totally fell apart. She went all the way to 15th. And you could tell she had that stride going for athletes. You can tell who are really struggling in the heat, where they're kind of their arms lift, they're sort of leaning back a little bit more. And I was just like, she was really just doing all she could to make it to the finish line. And then she collapsed and ended up in the medical tent. She said she didn't really remember much of the few minutes after crossing the line. But I give her a ton of credit for going for it and for hanging on as well. She said with 2 laps to go, she was already feeling the heat and kind of knew it was going to be a struggle. And then the last lap was just a survival test, put one foot in front of the other. She said, I couldn't drop out. I knew the U.S. needed me for the team score. So I thought she ran like a warrior. Now, I don't know. Could she have placed a bit higher if she'd relaxed a little bit, gone out a little slower? Maybe. But 15th is still a very good run. It's the best run by an American woman since 2017, Elefine Tuliamak. She should be proud of her effort. And I think this is why you get in world championships. You get in there to go for it and test yourself against the best in the world. That's what she did today.
Yeah, A for effort. By the way, some people, John, in the comments are saying I'm a little bit soft and you're loud. To me, you sound perfect. How do I sound to you, John?
Sound perfect.
Okay, good. Anybody, other people? I've kind of did a few things with my mic to make sure. But no, I give her a lot of credit for going for it. That's what you want to do. I don't want a fearless runner. And that was actually one of the things I didn't like about Hutchins. She's like, she's a fabulous track runner. I'm like, no, she's known for her cross country running. That's what she's known for. please read our profiles. But gutsy run, didn't finish the way she did. There was a Ugandan woman right behind her who I thought was not even going to make it to the finish line. So, it was getting tough, and you can definitely overdo it in this heat. And that's when we get to the men's race analysis. I thought Cheptegei and Koplimo played it really smart. Like, what's the point of pushing the pace early on? You might not medal. And Ingedic was the one doing a lot of the pushing this race, and she doesn't even medal. So, there you have it. Caroline Gravdahl ended up being the first non-African, or at least non-African born woman in the race, one spot ahead of Kelati. And it's wild to me that this is the woman who's won the last 3 European cross-country titles. This is her first world cross-country finish. So she did run one other time. She didn't finish, but this is the most decorated woman in European cross-country history. I think she has 9 medals, and she's never even run world cross. So I think moving forward, they've got to, this is a woman that loves cross, never runs this event. So they really need to somehow change that. And I think the different date of moving it to right after European cross, my idea is, well, why don't you just hold them like a race within a race? You have European cross be part of world cross, and hell, most years the race could be in Europe. Our house, it would be every other year in your house, and then maybe every other year go somewhere else, and you just score the meet within the meet. I mean, I know it's more fun to kind of have, to cross the finish line first as the European champion, then instead of crossing
that would be weird. 10th. You're giving out a gold medal to the 14th place finisher. I mean, do they get their own victory ceremonies? It's kind of odd.
Well, but okay, fine. Then put it, a few weeks after. But again, we could ruin every podcast by talking about how to make this, a somewhat unpopular sport more popular, or a little bit boring sport sometimes. But whatever. Good. I'm glad that Gravdahl wanted to run, race the best, solid showing, etc. All right, let's move to the men. Men's race goes off, and again, it wouldn't be a podcast if I wasn't complaining about the commentating. But Hutchings was like, tactical start. What are they doing? Why the Ugandans are in the 20s? Why aren't they leading? And I'm like, if this was a track race, like, we wouldn't be wondering why Mo Farah wasn't leading at the beginning of a 10,000. Now it's 80 degrees and people are expecting, like, why aren't they leading? Because they don't want to get it wrong. Cheptegei famously got it wrong at World Cross on his home soil and blew up and didn't medal. We have a famous YouTube clip that Weldon got of him. It was just scary to watch. So let other people do the work, do as little work as possible, and then on the last lap, assert yourself and win. And that's what Koplimo did for the second year in a row. I thought it was a very smart strategy given the weather, but something that you should actually do in just about every year. Like, why would you want to be just like, you don't want to push a track 10,000 from start to finish? If Mo Farah ever did that, people would have ripped him, and just the same thing applies to cross country for the most part. So
Koplimo did the same thing last year. I rewatched the Bathurst race earlier this week. He was not at the front for a long time, and then he just made sure just hang around, and he said both times his plan was to go with 3K to go. I don't know if that's just because he upped the tempo. Like, he made his decisive move both times at right around the same spot. It was about 1,400 or so to go. But yeah, that makes sense to me, Robert. You don't need to be hammering the pace if you're Koplimo. He knows how to win these things. It was interesting, though. A couple guys tried to get gaps, like Chimdesa Debele of Ethiopia. He just had this gap on the field on the first lap. The third lap, Gideon Rono. I was furiously Googling to figure out everything I could find out about this guy because he had this 5-second lead. And I was just like, is this guy for real? They're letting him go? But then you could think, okay, if everyone in the field's letting him go, maybe it's not for real. Maybe they know he can't hold it. And within a minute, he got gobbled up. But yeah, Koplimo ran this thing smartly. He ran it basically the same as last year and got the same result.
Yeah. Now, folks, if you're Evan Jager or fans of Jordy Beamish, better watch out. Koplimo was consistently hurdling the hay bales, John. It was interesting. The Kenyan women were so far ahead, they were just weaved in and out of the hay bales. Didn't see a single Kenyan woman, hurdle it. And it definitely slows you down to weave in and out. But if you're far enough ahead, you don't have to worry about someone on your inside. But if there's people around you, it's kind of like you better jump over it. Otherwise, you're really going to have to slow down. You might get hit from someone behind. So he was hurdling it. I don't think the steeplers need to really worry. He didn't look too smooth hurdling it. But again, I love that aspect, of the course. And I just, it blows my mind that, I mean, Kaplimo last year wins this race, destroys Cheptegei at the New York City half, runs like 12:41 or 12:42 in the 5,000. And I'm like, how does this guy not have a gold medal to his name? And I'm still wondering that. He's never won the big one on the track. Can he do it in Tokyo? We kind of thought we were seeing a changing of the guard in terms of who's the top dog in Uganda last year. But then Cheptegei said, hey, I was only third at World Cross, but guess what? I'm winning the gold medal at Worlds on the track. What will we see this summer?
How does he not have a gold medal? The guy has 3. He's won World Cross twice, 3 times if you count the junior race, and he's won the World Half. He doesn't have a gold medal on the track. Guess what? They're effing hard to get, Robert. Only 2 guys get him between the 5K and 10K. And Kiplimo, I think he's more at the 10. I don't think he'll ever win the 5K. I think the 10K is going to be his event. So, yeah, how does he not get it? Because he's got Joshua Cheptegei, who's the world record holder in front of him. That's not a failure of Kiplimo. He was injured last year. But this, he's going to have a good shot. If Cheptegei is declining, which we'll get into in a second, this could be his best opportunity. But you still got good guys. There's always going to be, whether it's, Daniel Abenyo or Stanley Waithaka or, Barahu Aragawi, Kajelcher is in great form. There are a lot of good guys. It's hard to win these things. So I don't think it's a failure on Kiplimo's part.
By the way, some of the live listeners want to know where the U.S. finished, John. The U.S. women were 4th, just out of the medals. I'm kind of kidding. We had 113 points. 3rd place, by the way, was 44. And for the men,
that's good. 4th place is a good finish for the women.
Yeah.
Like we didn't shout out Ali O running in her first USA kit since 2019 Worlds on the track. She was 30th. Abby Nichols 33rd. Emma Grace Hurley 35th. I mean, Robert, let's be real. Aside from Kelati, this was far from what you would call an A team for USA cross country. To show up and get 4th against, they get beat by Kenya, Ethiopia, and Uganda convincingly, but I think they should be proud of that run.
And the U.S. men were 7th, 22nd for Roches, 25th for Bor, Ahmed Muhammad, 36th, Christian Allen. I don't think I've ever heard of Christian Allen, John, 37th. Good for him. Anthony Camaria, non-scoring, 52nd. Reed Buchanan, 58th. The U.S. men were only 21 points out of 4th. That goes to Spain. But, and people want to know, John, there was a guy, I don't know if you were watching the live broadcast. It was kind of funny. At the start, there was an Indian runner that took off and had a huge lead. And Tim Hutchings thought this guy was in last place. He's like, oh, did he miss the start? He was like way ahead. Now, people want to know where he finished. I'm not sure which guy was in the lead at the start. The top Indian, Gulvar Singh, was 43rd. And he had a 45th. Had an 88th. So those are your 3 Indians. I'm not sure which guy. Do you remember, John, the name of the guy that had the lead early on?
I was doing interviews in the mix zone with the women, so I couldn't tell you. So, yeah, back to the men. Kiplimo wins it. Terrific. He's positioning himself well, but he positioned himself well last year as well, and ended up getting hurt. Can't really do anything about that. Then you've got Barahu Aragawi. Robert, I went up to him and he told me, tell Rojo, stop comparing me to Grant Fisher. I'm more than just a guy who beat Grant Fisher in the Olympics. I'm more than just that. I'm a great runner. I'm a 12:45K guy. So, no, he didn't actually say that, but I'm going to speak up for him. This is ridiculous. You just referred to he's the guy who beat Grant Fisher in the Olympics. Like, how about we just say he's the Olympic 4th placer, or he's a guy who ran 12:40, or a guy who lost to Grant Fisher in the 2022 World Championships. I don't understand how he's defined by one race against one American from 3 years ago.
I just bring it up because I think, obviously, we're an American-focused website, but people always harp on, why hasn't Fisher medaled? Well, guess what? Aragawi's never medaled on the track either. So it's, as you said just a minute ago, it's damn hard, to medal. But look, he's obviously still in good form, and doing well. He's going to be in the hunt for the medals this summer. But I think a bigger question here is Joshua Cheptegei. And before we write him off, let's remember this. It's kind of shocking to see him not medal. You know, it reminds me of like the first time you watch a Bekele or a Gebrselassie not medal on the track. You're like, wait, what's going on here? So last year was, we used to see him winning and he gets the bronze, but then he returns to the top on track. But I think that one thing, this is the 5,000 and 10,000 world record holder, 3-time 10,000 global 10,000 champion, Olympic 5,000 meter champion, one of the greats in history. But, it's like, is he done? Like, what's going on? Is this the beginning of the decline? And I think one of the reasons why that is bigger in our head than it might be, well, I guess he is, we do have 2 years in a row here of him getting worse in cross country, is it's hard to get that 2:08:59 finishing time in the marathon debut out of my head. Like, I know that he went out in 60 minutes and 36 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. He didn't train full time for it, but you're like, oh, that's crazy. So, I'm not willing to totally write him off. Obviously, he won the gold last year. I think he's going to be in the hunt for the track medals this year. But I do have some interesting stats to bring up if I can find my chart. And, well, let me ask you a few trivia questions because I don't think I've shown this to you. Although I had part of this in the recap. If you show it, John.
I read the recap, so I know all of it. Yeah.
Well, Joshua Cheptegei, if you're listening live, folks, how old do you think he is? Anybody know? Guess what? He's 27 years of age. How old were Haile Gebrselassie and Kenenisa Bekele when they won their track medal? They were 27 years of age. And more importantly than the age of Cheptegei to me is how long he's been on top or winning medals on the track. Because Mo Farah didn't even win his first medal on the track until he was 28. But Haile G won his first medal in 1993, his last medal in 2000. That's a span of 7 years. Mo Farah, first medal on the track, 2011, last medal, 2017. 6 years, Kenenisa Bekele, 6 years as well, 2003 to 2009. Joshua Cheptegei, how long has he been on top? Well, he's been on top since 2019, which would only be 5 years. But unlike those other guys, he won his first medal. It was actually a silver in 2017. So he's been winning medals now. This would be 7 years. So none of these three all-time greats, the two previous 5 and 10 world record holders, plus Mo Farah, were able to win a medal more than 7 years apart. So based on that, you would think the end of him contending on the track by historical standards should be ending soon.
Well, he's already said he's moving out to the marathon after Paris. So one way or another is going to end. But I did find those stats really interesting, Robert. And I guess the question is it a 6-year reign or is it a 7-year reign? And if it's 6 years, then it ended last year. And if it's 7 years, it ends this year. So it's going to be fascinating. I'm not going to write the guy off. He's delivered too many times. He's won 3 straight world titles in the 10,000. He did get beat by Barega in the Olympics, but he was kind of coming into that. Well, he still won the 5,000 at that. So, yeah, great championship runner. One of the best of his, I'd say probably the best of his generation in the distances. But it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be very interesting to see how it played out. I wanted to try to talk to him. I think he must have come through while I was talking to one of the Americans because I didn't get a chance to. But, yeah, it makes things interesting going into the track season for sure.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. That was a great context, the way you put it. Like, these guys, it's hard to be competitive for like a decade the entire way through on the track, winning gold medals and contending medals. Just not many guys do it.
And that's what makes Usain Bolt's, 3 straight in the Olympics so amazing because he had like an 8-year reign, right?
Yeah. 2008 through 2016. Yep. Usain Bolt, by the way. It's Usain Bolt.
But I don't know. I feel like at this point, Kiplimo deserves it. But I was kind of thinking, Kiplimo's just going to dominate. But Kiplimo's been on the scene for, a while now. I mean, he's only, 22 or 23 officially. But, he's got the 2 is it 2 bronzes?
Yeah, 2 bronze. He didn't get a silver in there, did he? I think it's 2 bronzes.
Yeah, 2021 bronze, Olympics 2022 bronze. He was actually 5th in the 21 5,000. So be interesting to see. I mean, right now, if I asked you, John, does Cheptegei win the Olympics? I give you 50-50 odds.
Well, I got to put my money. Wait, does he have to? Does he? Well, so you're basically saying Cheptegei or the field? I'll take the field.
Yeah, at even money. Yeah.
Yeah, I would take the field.
So,
I'd say no.
do you think there's a greater or less than 50% chance that he wins the Olympic gold medal?
A less than 50% chance.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say less than 50% chance, but I guess I'd have to say that there's a less than 50% chance for everybody.
Correct. I don't think there's one guy who's 50% likely to win. I think it's spread around among him, Kajelcha, Kiplimo, a little bit on Grant Fisher maybe, Selma Barega. Yeah, bunch of guys who could win. I think it's exciting that way.
John, Fantasy on the YouTube chat wants to know if any of the runners incorporated the John Galt hay bale strategy in the race today. Do you think anyone watched you like hurdling it and thought, this is how I want to do it?
I know for a fact that, at least one athlete watched the video because he told me one of the British junior athletes said that he listens to the podcast. He's a big fan and that he also watched the video. And Paula Radcliffe gave me a comment on it this morning and said that she thought I should have. She's like, you can run faster than you were when you were weaving, right? You didn't look very fast on those. I'm like, well, I mean, probably, but you lose momentum a lot. But no. Honestly, I was paying attention to the hay bales because, like you said, Robert, I'm all in favor for them making this a permanent part of world cross country. It makes the race more interesting. It's like we say, there's no interceptions or turnovers in cross country. Well, this is kind of something that throws them for a loop. So I like that. I like the mud pit. But I saw athletes take every approach. Some weaved the entire time. Some hurdled one and then ran diagonally so they could avoid the second one. And some hurdled both. And I think it just sort of depended on what point in the race you were at, who was around you. Like Kiplimo hurdled both on his final loop because he was feeling good. But I think Aragawi only hurdled one or maybe neither of them. And some of the guys, if you were getting tired at the end of the race, a lot of them would just say, no, I'm not hurdling. I don't have the energy to hurdle. So they just weave. And also almost all of the women in the junior race weaved. And, they're younger and smaller, I think, than anyone else in the races. So they probably didn't trust themselves to hurdle quite as much. But it was fascinating because it wasn't like there was one obvious answer. You could choose all of them and athletes had success with all of them.
But how do you weave if there's a lot of people? Like if it was NCAA cross, you couldn't really do it, right?
Well, they worked it out. I mean, there was also, I don't know. It was.
I'm not gonna lie, John.
I thought there'd be more falls and collisions. I didn't see any, honestly.
To all the high school fans, the teenagers that are listening to the podcast, even though we're running in the race, I apologize. I did not get up at 6 a.m. to watch the junior races, so I missed those races. You're going to have to tell me what happened in those. But
we need more phenoms, U.S. phenoms, running these things because Robert, when you went to Jordan in 2009, that was partially because, you thought German Fernandez was the next big thing. So I guess you're going to be at the next World Cross in Tallahassee anyway, but for 2028, need some phenoms doing it.
I was so excited about the future of track just to see him, and that was the main reason why I went to Jordan. And I was excited last year with the young brothers. Really excited to go to U.S. Cross to watch them run. And, when the big names show up. So I think that would be another thing. If they – last year I went to U.S. Cross, a lot of the runners admitted to me that they didn't even know that the U.S. – because there hadn't been a world championships in a while. So, if you're in high school, 4 years is like forever. So they didn't. One of the runners said, "I didn't even know there was this race existed until a week ago." So USATF was not doing a good job promoting it. So I think that I do think that you could combine some of these races. Like, okay, maybe you're holding Europeans in the middle of World Cross doesn't make sense. But if we get an earlier date, you could. And Foot Locker, I'm sorry to if this is the case, but you could hold the U.S. championships as part of the NXN race. Or as part of, I guess you'd have to put the college kids on this. So that would be a problem.
Well, no, Robert, think about this for Tallahassee in 2026. World Cross is going to be on January 10th. That's the tentative date. So these high school kids, you might have them doing NXN on the first weekend in December, Foot Locker on the second weekend in December, and then presumably the U.S. trials. The U.S. trials might be the same weekend as Foot Locker, or they might be the week after. Like, that's going to be kind of a mess. You would hope there's a way for athletes to kind of do everything, and it doesn't involve them doing like 4 8K, all these races. Try to combine it somehow.
I don't see, again, I don't know what the solution. This is the problem with it, because there's no governing body in charge of everything. Everybody's got their own independent things. And it's like, it would make sense just to make one of these high school races it, but then what about the college kids? And then we don't want to select the team because we want it to be a trials race, and you can't have 4 trials races. So thank God I'm not in charge of USATF. But wow. I'm looking at the comments, John. I'm not sure who. Jordan Donnelly says he won't even be there at the bell. Who's he talking about?
I assume he's talking about Cheptegei.
Wow.
Please clarify if not, Jordan. Them's fighting words. That's disrespect for a guy who's won the last 2 global titles in that distance. But I don't know. Maybe he meant someone else.
We have an interesting YouTube listener with the name of Yared Kerr. By the way,
I'm sure that's their real name.
If your name is, if you're the guy that used to call into the podcast, fake Josh Kerr, I'm worried you're dead. So please call into the show, 844 Let's Run. Unlike Facebook, unlike Twitter, we have a phone number. Give us a call, 844-538-7786. And your opinion, and feel free, if you've got a question, put it in the comments. This could be a mailbag. Who do you think has the best chance to earn their first medal on the track at the Paris Olympics? Well, Yomif Kejelcha, Grant Fisher, or Berhu Aragawi. Kejelcha has medaled on the track. He did it under Salazar, right?
Yeah, 2019, he got the silver. I want to say Kejelcha, but I always get he sucks me in with these great performances, and then the Worlds, I feel like, I guess he has one World Indoors, but I would have thought he'd have more than one outdoor medal at this point because he's been in good shape before. So the best chance of those, Aragawi's so good, but then I don't know. Am I being an American bias because I think it's Fisher? I think they're all pretty similar ability, honestly. I think Kejelcha is probably a better closer, though. But oh man, I think I think Fisher will probably run both the 5 and 10 and has a medal shot in both. I'm not convinced Kejelcha will be allowed to double. I'm not convinced Aragawi would medal in the 5K. As good as he is, I'm just not sure if the championship 5K is the best event for him. So maybe I'm totally biased. I think they're all pretty, to be honest, I think the medal chances are all pretty much the same.
Yeah, and we had this stat in one of the articles recently in terms of historically Fisher. Well, today's race was good for Fisher in the sense of if Cheptegei is declining, that's a big help for him because instead of the stats are he never beats Jacob Kaplimo or Joshua Cheptegei in a race. He's like 0-5 against one of them, 1-4 against the other. But then he's pretty much 50-50 against these guys, Kejelcha, Aragawi, 3 or 4 guys. So he's got a good shot with them. Yeah, God, would I say Fisher? I probably would say Fisher just because I feel like, well, he's still got to make the team, but he's got to do less to make the team. I do think sometimes these Ethiopian guys are tiring themselves out trying to make the team, running too many races, although I assume Ethiopia would have a 10,000 trial like they've done in the recent years. But I think sometimes these guys are running a little bit too much on the circuit, whatever. If you said they all were going to have the same coach, the same sponsorship situation, the same Olympic team situation, I probably wouldn't pick Fisher. But damn, these guys, all of them are really good.
Well, I'm looking at Kejelcha's results last year, Robert. And I don't understand how he got 5th at the World Championships. This is what he did in the track season last year: 12:52 for 2nd in Florence. Wins the only guy who beat him there is Mokatir, who's since been suspended for whereabouts. Wins the Oslo Diamond League 12:41. Then he gets 5th in the World Championships. Then after Worlds, 1st in Zurich, 12:46, destroys Grant Fisher in that race. And then the Diamond League final, 2nd in the 3,000, loses by 100th of a second to Jakob Ingebrigtsen, runs 7:23. And then guess what he does a month after the track season? He goes to Valencia and runs 57:41 in the half marathon. How the hell did he not beat Luis Grijalva in the World Championship 5K? How does he not get a medal? It's just, it's like we said, it's hard to get these medals, but I also, that thing is swaying me. Like, even if he's running amazing times, even if he's running 26:37 on the roads, does that necessarily mean he's going to medal? I'm not sure.
Maybe he needs a fast pace. He's the former indoor mile world record holder.
What do you mean former? Someone break that record? He's still got that record. He's a 2-time world indoor champion in the 3K. That's the thing. He's not like he has a bad kick. He has a good kick too. So I don't know. I think, I guess the one thing would be, he's running all these races on the circuits. It's not like he was running. He ran the Florence and Oslo Diamond Leagues. Those were his only 2 Diamond Leagues before the Worlds. So I don't know. All right. I guess we should briefly talk about the American men in this race. 22nd, Anthony Rotich, who just ran 27:08 at the 10. He was the top U.S. finisher. He said, I was like, do you think the heat had anything to do with the, moving down the field the last couple laps? Because he went out with the leaders. I'll give him credit as well. He ran aggressively. He went for it. And he just said, no. Well, actually, I'm looking at this. He was 24th after 3 laps. So maybe it was even earlier he was up with the lead pack. He went with the lead pack, I guess is what I'm saying. And he just said, no, the last 2 laps, my legs, they started feeling tired, and I think it was because of the 10 from 2 weeks ago. So he didn't think the weather had anything to do with it. He's just like, my legs started feeling tired, and that's what he blamed, was the 10. So 22nd, I think, is fine, though. I don't think that's a pretty good run. I think you should be encouraged if you're Anthony Rotich. And then 25th, Emmanuel Bohr. This guy can't really catch a break. He's had some falls in U.S. championships where he's, gotten out kicked at the end of races. He's ran some races sick. This one, his shoe burst open with 2 laps to go. So he has to run through the mud, through all this other stuff with his toe basically poking out. Like, we have a picture. I tweeted out a picture of it. You'll probably see it in the video as well if you watch the post-race interview. But he was running with essentially, 1.5 shoes the last 2 laps, and he ends up getting 25th. He said the one thing he's excited about is he's been working like a full-time job in the Army this spring. He's like, going into the 10, I just, I was doing everything, full work week that week. I had, didn't think things were going that well training-wise. Now he's been granted permission by the Army to just focus all in on running until the Olympic trials. So he's pretty excited about that opportunity going into Eugene.
I think somebody just gave us $2. I'm not sure what happened, John. Anyways, one thing that was interesting about this race to me, in terms of, was looking at the times. To me, like, one of my things in the Let's Run is, don't ever talk about times in a cross-country race because they vary so much based on course conditions, and we don't even know if it's 10,000 meters exactly, etc. But relative times do mean something. You know what the winning time is, far off that you can compare the men's and women's time. So the men's race appears to me to be a little bit higher quality in terms of the pace. They were talking about how slow it started, but they end up running 28:09. So they're less than 2 minutes off the world record, 26:11 for 10,000 meters. Whereas the women's winning time, Beatrice Chebet, is 31:05. So she's more than 3 minutes behind what is the road world record, even 3 minutes behind the track world record. And if you look at where the where the American finishes, Weini Kelati, I think you and I probably agree she's probably a little bit better than the 30:33 or 30:35, whatever her time is. Like, if she's never great on the track anyways, but she probably should be running closer to like between, she doesn't quite break 30, like 30:15, but she's a minute and 48 seconds behind. Well, guess what? She's basically a minute and 48 seconds behind the world record too. It's like 28:46. She's run 30:33. It's very similar to that. And then, I was looking at the top American for the men, Anthony Rotich. He was a minute and 13 behind the winner. Now, his 27:08 is just under a minute off the world record. But they kind of ran similar to, like, okay, how far are they off the world record holder? That's how far they're going to finish in this race. So I thought those stats were kind of interesting.
Okay, let's talk about this relay real quick because a couple interesting things happen in this. Kenya won again the mixed relay. It's everyone runs one lap. Sorry, it's 4 legs. Everyone runs one lap of the course. So it's about 8K roughly total, but some of the legs are a little longer or whatever. Kenya had the best team on paper, even though turns out Emmanuel Wenyonyi did not run for Kenya. I think he didn't go to the training camp, it sounded like. So they win convincingly, but a couple interesting things. One, the final exchange for Ethiopia. The incoming runner, Adahana Kasai, flat tires Biri Abera, the anchor leg for Ethiopia. And I see her get this like sash or whatever, this sweatband that they're using as the baton. And she's not moving anymore. I'm like, what's going on? And then she's trying to adjust her shoe. And then at some point, she just like, screw it, takes off, runs the entire leg with one shoe, including the mud pit, like still holds her position, gets second place. So that was pretty impressive, right?
It was impressive, but Paula Radcliffe claimed that she took off the second shoe at some point.
No, she did not. She crossed the finish line with one shoe. It was just muddy, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, so a lot of times I think that the mud, I was like, one time I thought the whole Kenyan team was like running barefoot. I was like, oh my God, they're all barefoot, but they're just covered in mud because that mud pit was pretty cool. By the way, those of you listening live, you can listen and do other things on the internet. Why don't you check out our running shoe site right now? BetterRunningshoes.com, BetterRunningshoes.com. Best shoe reviews on the site. Don't trust Amazon's reviews. This is like the Yelp for shoe reviews. This is like the Ferrari of shoe reviews. Let's run.com/shoes also takes you to the same place. So,
I give her credit because she was only 8 seconds slower than the Kenyan anchor who had the fastest time. But then the other drama on the last lap was the Americans handed off in third place. And I would say a lot of credit goes here to Ella Donahue of the Nike Union Athletics Club. She ran a storming second leg. She had the second fastest split on that leg. The only person who went faster, Robert, one of your favorite runners, Nozomi Tanaka, who has pulled off like the quadruple crown. She ran Worlds on the track last year, then the World Road Running Champs, then World Indoors, and now is running the mixed relay at World Cross. So if there's a World Athletics event, she's running it, and she ran great here. So credit to her. But Ella Donahue did a great job because after the first leg, I was just like, the U.S. I don't know if I think they were like 8th place. I was like, they're probably not going to factor in here. She brought them back in there. John Renowecki kept them in it, and it came down to Katie Izzo. And Robert, before the race, you kind of, you mentioned something I put in my preview that she had broken her foot at the U.S. Championships, and yet she was still running the relay. You're like, how's that going to work? I'm like, well, I'm guessing, maybe it's just like a stress reaction or a stress fracture. It wasn't that serious. She looked like someone who broke a bone in her foot up 2 months ago. She did not run a great leg, and the British anchor, Bethan Morley, ran a fantastic leg. Britain gets the bronze medal. Again, the lead at the final exchange, I should say here, Katie Izzo in the U.S. had a 3-second lead and ends up Great Britain final time 23 flat. Katie Izzo anchored to the U.S. She was 21 seconds behind. They were 23-21 in 8th place. And look, Katie Izzo gave it her all in this race. But to me, if you break your second metatarsal at the U.S. Championships and then you're missing 5 weeks of running, which is what she said, you shouldn't be running the relay. You should either remove yourself or tell USATF, hey, I'm not 100%. You should find a replacement, something like that. It just, in a team setting like this, I'm not saying the U.S. would have medaled, and I don't know how many people are lining up to run a relay leg in Serbia. I feel like USATF kind of should promote this a little bit more and get people to run it more. But she missed so much training. She did say she was cross-training, and she ran a workout. She thought she was ready, but she didn't run great. And I have to think that missing those 5 weeks was one of the reasons why.
I mean, it's easy to see the result now and slam it. Like, why did she give it up? Now, in terms of individual spots, I mean, sometimes you'll see a Japanese guy make the Olympic team and give it up because he's hurt. But even now, they're starting to take the spots. Like, I don't have a problem. You get on the team, you want to show up hurt, to call yourself an Olympian, I guess I'm fine with that. This is a little bit different to me because you're on a relay team, but we saw Grant, and I think criticizing. I mean, I think you understated it, saying she didn't run a good leg. She ran a terrible leg. She was like 24 seconds behind the British woman. But we saw Grant Fisher. If I'm going to defend her, we saw Grant Fisher cross train and do pretty well last year. Right after that, so maybe she thought, it's not a big deal. We're probably not going to medal anyways.
The NCAA champion in cross country barely runs. She does a couple workouts a week on solid ground, but she does a ton of cross training. Like, I don't think this is a 100% black and white thing. Like, oh, it has to be completely rip her. I think you can also say, hey, she wanted to go to Serbia and run this mixed relay. And how many American milers who are in great shape right now turn this spot down? Didn't even apply for it. Like, we don't know exactly. But if you look, they're supposed to be picking the list based on a combined 1,500-mile 3K performance list from the last year or so. And I think there are just a lot of people who didn't even apply. So I give her a lot of credit, one, for cross-training her ass off to try and give it, running on, I'm guessing, she's putting her body on the line in an Olympic year here, maybe risking further injury by even running. So I do give her credit for that, but at the same time, and she said she thought she was able to come out and race based on this workout she had done, but I don't know. If you're missing 5 weeks of running, I feel like you got to kind of say hey, I'd love to run this, but if you need to look for a replacement for someone who might be healthy. So I don't want to totally rip her, but yeah.
Let's imagine this was an event in the Olympics, and you make the team at the trials, and you get hurt, and then someone just shows up cross training because they want to be an Olympian. God, in that case, I'd probably rip. I think at that point, the coaches have to be able to decide who they want. Well, then you get in the favoritism. It'd be tough. It's a very tough call. Look, she's repeatedly shown she likes cross country. She went over there, but it's going to be kind of ironic if she ends up making the Olympic 10,000 team because she's ranked as one of the top. Well, it'll be interesting to see how the cross country rankings show up next week after World Cross in there. If she's still one of the 8 women to get one of these Olympic 10,000 qualifying times based off cross country rankings, and she somehow gets in the top 3 at the U.S., it's going to be pretty ironic if she gets in to the Olympics as one of the top cross country runners in the world when she bombed World Cross.
Well, I don't think she's going to finish in the top 3 at USAs in the 10K because I don't think she's good enough. But I think what's going to be interesting is what if because I was basically asked her about this. I said, hey, you've got the ranking spot right now. Have you talked to USATF about this? And she's like, well, I feel like if I'm top 6 at the Olympic trials and, we don't have 3 women at the standard, they might send me. But I was like, what's that based on? She's like, oh, it's just sort of my sense. It sounds like she hasn't hashed this out. Because there was a thread on Twitter this week, James McCarty, who's usually fairly plugged into this stuff, seemed to suggest that USATF wouldn't use the World Cross Country spot if they were offered it. So we need to sort of straighten this out ahead of the trials to see how things are going to shake out.
I saw that thread on Twitter, and I don't agree with that. First of all, by law, USATF cannot make it harder to make the Olympics than it is to make the Olympics anyway. So if she finished top 3 at the trials and had the standard and has the cross country ranking, I think that she legally could sue them and force.
Oh yeah. No, that if she's top 3, I think that USATF will send that.
Well, even top 3. No, if she's the 3rd person with the thing, if she beats any of the other people at the time, you're looking for 3 that could go to the Olympics. If she's one of the top 3, she goes. Doesn't matter if she's 6; she could be 46th, as long as the people with the standard behind her are 47 and 48. Anyways, I was going to criticize her, but hey, she wants to run. She thought she could do better. I'm sure she's disappointed. It's not like it's not like we would remember for the rest of our lives that Team USA won the mixed relay, at the 2024 World Cross Country Championships. Congrats to Britain, though. They are the only, just the only non-African team to win a medal today.
Yeah, and actually the crazy thing about all these medals, all the team medals the team gold medals went to the same exact teams as last year in Bathurst, and all the nationalities for the individual medals were the same. Obviously, the same exact people won the senior races. And then the men's junior race, a Kenyan boy won both years. And the girls' junior race, an Ethiopian woman won both years. Actually, the winner of the junior race, Marta Alameo of Ethiopia, officially only 15 years old, Robert. Now, I don't need to speculate beyond this. And usually these junior athletes do turn out to win the junior race at World Cross. Usually it means you're going to be one of the best in the world in a few years. But don't know, 15. I'll just put it 15.
What?
We'll just leave it at that.
I'm not skeptical of these birth dates anymore because I feel like the world's getting much more modern. 10, 15 years ago, yeah, but we've seen Faith Kipyegon and we've seen Letson Gade win as a junior and then come back and win 2 years later. So to me, this keep track of this woman, because if she can do it in 2 years ago, then you've got the hallmarks of someone, who could be really, one of the best. Someone in the comments is saying that I think they misinterpreted what I said. I was talking about, like someone like they say, Brian Way says, Savannah Hassan gets on the Olympic team any way she wants without running the trials. I think Rojo's right about having to peak for a selection race is disadvantage. I wasn't really even saying that. Like, I feel like I actually think one of the best ways to pick a team and just easiest ways is just like hold your trials race on the last possible day possible, 3 or 4 weeks out. Run a trials race. I think it's better than going off seasonal best time. Run the trials race and pick the team then. And I think it's actually a very good way to do the team. But what the Ethiopians do is, but the trials race needs to simulate the Olympics. So in an ideal world, I would have it somewhat warmish conditions. I wouldn't have go to Northern Europe and have rabbits or rabbiting lights and cool conditions. It's just that's not the same thing as what happens in Olympic 10,000. So and I do think that the Ethiopians, they seem to tire themselves more out in the 5,000 because they don't have the trials race. So they don't know if they're going to get on the 10, so that they're all hammering these 5,000s throughout the season, hoping that, well, if I don't make the 10, I can get my time in the 5,000. That's how I think they tire themselves out. So I actually think Ethiopia would be much better served if they had a real trials race. But holding a trials race in Ethiopia or Kenya at altitude is dumb, because that's nothing like the Olympics. So,
well, the Ethiopians, you never know with the Ethiopians, but the last Olympics, they had trial races in Hengelo, and I think that's the way to do it. They did the whole thing on one day, so you couldn't really double up in the 5K and 10K, and actually they might have only had a 10K trial. So they usually have a 10K trials in Hengelo. They've done that in the last few years.
Just the 10K though, but then they wear themselves out in the 5, chasing the
right. So I think maybe the way to do it is you just say, we're going to have one trials in the 5 and it's on this date. And then you have another trials in a different, in a 10 and it's on, it's a month later or something like that.
All right, folks.
Rojo, we'll talk about this on the regular show next week, but I do want to talk about the atmosphere, because I got a text from an agent just now and they said they didn't sell any tickets or let anyone into the, basically into the park without credentials. There were public areas of the park that you could kind of watch, but you couldn't get on the infield, I think is what this person is saying, without credentials, which I just think is a missed opportunity. I don't know, this atmosphere. I was in Aarhus. It was a great atmosphere. Bathurst, great atmosphere. You had a lot of fans there. This was not that. Uganda even. You had a huge grandstand by the finish line where fans could stand. And when Kiplimo won the junior race, they were losing their effing minds. It was awesome. This one, not even close. So I hope that Tallahassee sees what happened, learns from it, and we
don't know what's going on. There's been a lot of conflict in that area of the world. It's Easter weekend.
This is Serbia. It's not Ukraine, Robert.
No,
I guess you're saying this is a security risk?
So I'm saying possibly, yes. Didn't they have a huge ethnic cleansing with religious people battling, and we just had a terrorist attack in Moscow? So, look.
So there's a terrorist attack anywhere in the world. We need to change the security protocols for World Cross. I don't know. I feel like the atmosphere, I'm just saying the atmosphere was not great. It was the worst World Cross I've been to of the 4, and I'd like to see them improve for Tallahassee. I don't think that's unfair criticism.
And I think it will. What do you mean? Tallahassee is going to be like our house. It's going to be amazing. We're going to hype it up for 2 years. Everyone's going to get excited. We're going to show up. We're going to have the Let's Run party. Join the Supporters Club today. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. If you're not wearing one of the yellow beanies, you're not getting in the door. I've already got the restaurant. I need to call them now to see if I can reserve it. Do you think they can let me rent out the restaurant for two years out? It's going to be amazing.
I'm a little concerned. You're saying that you can't get in without a Let's Run beanie. No one has a Let's Run beanie right now except for you. So, you got to boost production on that before making it the ticket of entry.
It's going to be a party just for me, John. That's the beauty of it. But Yeah. So, was the atmosphere good in person? No, terrible. Was the visuals on TV great? Yes, it looked good on TV. Look, I think the alternative was them not having the meet at all. So rather than
No,
them delaying it and whatever. So
I'm glad the meet happened. I'm glad Belgrade stepped up, but they did have a few months to promote this and to maybe allow the spectators who were coming access to some of the better parts of the course instead of just sticking them on the sidelines.
And I know Tallahassee would be like a disaster if people got on the course and ran into a runner. But to me, the best part about cross country races is all the fans running all over the place. Terre Haute running from side to side. They open it. They do the Terre Haute. Tallahassee people should go to Terre Haute. I don't remember what it's like Tallahassee, but they have people holding you off. But then when they go past, you're allowed to run on the course to go to the next spot.
That's the thing. NCAA cross country. Every single NCAA cross country I've been to, doesn't matter the venue, has had a good atmosphere just because of that. You have fans running from spot to spot, and people are smart enough to know, okay, I'm not going to get in the way of this runner. I'm going to wait till they go. And maybe World Athletics is a little bit stingy, more worried about that. But I feel like if you could do it every year at NCAA Cross and we never have any major issues, I would hope they could figure out a way to do it for World Cross as well.
Yeah. All right. Be there or be square. Tallahassee, January
10th, 2026. Mark it down. I mean, I'm not saying 100% it's set in stone because Seb Coe has kind of mentioned, he said in this press conference, they've been working on this schedule to work things out with European cross country to make sure that you have more European representation at Worlds. So that's the tentative date we have. Maybe it changes, but I can't wait. I think it's going to be fantastic. Florida State did a good job hosting NCAA Cross in 2021. I'm glad it's in the U.S. for the first time since '92, so it's going to be fun.
What about holding it right before Christmas or right after so people could go on their Christmas break? Like, take the whole family, go to Florida in the winter.
Maybe there'll be a college football playoff game in Tallahassee. If they're doing campus sites, it might be around that time. FSU was good this year, so even though they didn't get into the playoffs, sorry, Seminoles fans. So, yeah. Anyway, that's a wrap from Serbia. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in around the world. Thank you to anyone who ran in today's race who might be listening, because I know that was at least one listener of the podcast was competing today in Belgrade. Thanks, guys, and we'll be back on Tuesday.
We want to thank you, John. I forgot to ask about the press scene. Like, how many Western journalists were there?
Cathal Dennehy was here.
How many North American journalists were there? Print or media, not photographers.
Yeah, photographers. U.S. actually usually has a pretty good photographer representation. Media from from North America, as far as I know, you're talking to the 100% of them right now.
Thank you. We wanted to thank the Supporters Club. Your support makes things like this possible. I thought about putting all your interviews behind the paywall. It's kind of like the flow track business model. The moms and dads would have paid to see their little junior boy, junior girl do well. We didn't talk about the top U.S. juniors, but we have interviews up with them on YouTube. Until next time, signing off. Thank you, John, for your good work.